Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Connection with Spirit. I'm Deborah Epstein.
And I'm Larissa Russell. And apologies for being a couple minutes late. We were deep in discussion, and then it was like, oh, we're supposed to be somewhere.
Yeah, what are we talking about again?
And we were not talking about what we were going to talk about today, but anyway.
But we started off there because we were talking about flow, and we were talking about the energy that's kind of chaotic. People are feeling it as chaotic. And I was kind of saying to you how, like, just not feeling the chaos, but I do feel the shift in the energy. And I feel like there's like the flow and the pattern interrupts and stuff like that, and how much we resist. And we kind of went right down a rabbit hole.
We absolutely did. One that I will be, going further down after this call. But
thank you very much.
Yes, this is what happens when we get together. We have these conversations where just all the things that are fascinating and the synchronicities and what we feel, so much the same and all of that. And Deborah will say, oh, did you know this? I was just journaling about that. Did you think about this? I was just having that conversation. We have so many of those moments. So yes, absolutely. So welcome everyone. And, as per usual, if you want to join the conversation, please feel free to ask questions, make comments in the chat. Just let us know you're here, say hi, all of those things. Join us in those conversations. And yes, we are talking about flow. And this was the conversation that we had, must have been 2 weeks ago now, because last week we didn't meet because my daughter was in town and, we had gotten on this whole thing. And of course, the energy shifts a lot in 2 weeks. Not that this isn't relevant. And it does have, but it's like, oh, but we could have continued with that. So maybe that'll be next month. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been kind of looking back at my writing. I have I think I saw I have 80 posts now on my Substack, and I was like, wow, that built up. Like, who would have thought, right? Remember when I first started it, writing more consistently. I think it's been a year, maybe it'll be a year in September when I started being more consistent, writing, in a cycle. And I wouldn't have thought then I would have had enough to say to
I would have thought so, but
I know I but yeah, I noticed that a lot of the posts that I write about have to do with creative flow and being in the flow. And this week's is the being in the ebb of the flow, because I'm like, well, it's still flow. It may not be going as fast as we want it to go, but it's still flow. And there's stuff that happens, beautiful things that happen in the ebbs of, in rhythms. Right. And I think when you're in a place that, we were talking about linearity, that only moves in one direction, that moves at a certain speed, that's growing and increasing, and we need to get things out yesterday, right? When you're in a creative ebb, it's beautiful for the artist being a creative ebb, but it's not translatable if you're trying to monetize things, right? Or hit deadlines. So we were kind of talking about that. So I think that's kind of where that topic took me since I saw you last.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually, a lot of my journaling has been around the stories we tell ourselves, right? And over this last 2 weeks, the stories we tell ourselves in, how we're supposed to show up based on what we've been told. These stories are all things we've learned over our lifetime, and they're not things we came here with. They're things we've learned in this lifetime. And so, unpacking those stories, but then also how have they served up until now?
Yeah.
And is it helpful? Is it helpful in some ways? And one of the ones we actually just finished having a conversation about, so I'm going to bring it up because I think it's really relevant, is about procrastination. And I'm a very much a last minute person, right? And as a body ADHD, so autism and ADHD, again, as a story, this is a label that's been put on us in this, lifetime, this world that we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe like it's a different frequency, and we're preparing for something. We were also having that conversation,
Yeah.
and I've been talking about that for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned about myself, now again, stories, is that deadlines. I need a deadline or it doesn't get done, and I'm very much a last minute person.
Mm-hmm.
What I have been journaling about this week is, now do I leave it to the last minute because that's the story I'm telling myself?
Mm-hmm.
Or right, is it like, is it yes and are neither true is one of the and so just really unpacking and exploring what that means. I haven't figured it out yet, but just exploring more of that.
And I think too, because we are so diverse too, that like what I discovered about myself with that, like I definitely think that behavior came from a wounding when I in childhood, perfection, performance, getting shit done on time and being in the resistance of that. But one of the things I discovered, because I always used to go into the self beat up for wait until the last minute. But one of the things I discovered, and this was when I had, I was doing just online work, because I would drag my feet to get stuff to the people who are supposed to be helping me. But what I realized is that sometimes it's energetic. It's the idea of what wants to be said isn't there yet, because I channel a lot. So sometimes the channel doesn't open till almost the time it's time to deliver, which is really interesting. When you're trying to when you have to get people moving parts to set things up on the back end, and they need 3 months time to do it. I can get a glimpse of what I want that to look like, but what's going to fill that space sometimes doesn't come in till sometime. What I found was
the night before,
the day you deliver. When I go to open my mouth, I have no idea what's going to come through. And it I actually I used to play with that, and just say, you know what, I'm going to purposefully not plan anything. It makes me crazy. And then I never follow it anyway. So I'm like, am I procrastinating because I'm a bad person? Or am I procrastinating because a higher part of myself goes, stop doing it that way?
And it's again, other people's expectations,
Yeah.
which we've learned those expectations as well. Yeah. And I'm less hard on myself when I just take care of it myself, right? When I have somebody else, even if they don't say anything, but if I'm giving it to someone else, or I know someone else is waiting for something, they don't have to say anything. I will beat myself up just fine. Right? And so, but if it's just me, I am less likely to, because it's well, this is how I flow. And it's, I'm one of those people who has been able to just show up and do it.
Yeah.
For so long.
Yeah.
And the more I plan, the more I put it together ahead of time, the less interest I have in sharing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I don't know if you've acknowledged that about yourself. I suspect that you channel stuff too, and you're just not acknowledging it,
It took me a while to figure it out. It's so funny because often when I'm coaching, especially one-on-one, and I'll get off the call and I'm like, I don't even know how I know that. I don't even know where that came from, but and less so now because I do pay more attention to what's happening. But when I first started it a few years back with the online coaching, I'm like, what is happening? I don't even know where those words came from. I don't know what I was talking about.
Yeah. But that's, when you're, consciously operating a field of energy, and you're holding a field of energy, and you understand that you are a field of energy, and that when you merge with someone else, it doesn't matter how far away they are. It's like if you picture everybody as energy bubbles, you're just merging bubbles and you're becoming one bubble. So that means you have access to the same information that person does. Doesn't mean you're reading their mind. But just like I had this conversation with ChatGPT about predictability, because our brains are wired for predictability. So we can predict because we're in the same culture somewhat, right? even though if you look at like, we're all worlds within worlds within worlds, right? And when we decide, when we work together, we go, okay, I'm giving you permission for you to step into my world because I know you're going to help me. I trust you. And you go, okay, yep, I honor that trust. I honor that sacred space, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to work on your behalf, right? So that would be kind of silly to not be able to have access to the information that's going to help the other person when you're saying, hey, this is what I'm here for, right? You know, it becomes dicey when you're picking up stuff that the person is like so disassociated from, and they want to now fight you on it. So that's where the work comes in, because it's like, okay, I know you're saying that, but here's the information. So you take it or leave it, right? I'm not going to force it on you, but like, here it is. But that is one of my things. It's like, no, look, here it is, here it is. I often imagine my guides working with me, right? No, don't do that.
Oh, it's true. And so many times I have, fought my own self on things, because, that the more that you just like allow, just, surrender, whatever word you want to put in there, the easier everything just comes. Like, just stop that. I'm talking to my own self. Just stop fighting it. Just stop fighting it. I know we've had many a conversation about talking to dead people. And like, I would get so annoyed when, dead people show up in my home, because I'm just like, you didn't talk to me about this when you were alive. You are not talking about it now, because mostly it's like friends and family and things like that I've gotten much better with it. But
well, I think too, we have to have boundaries in the physical world, but we kind of forget we need to have them in the non-physical world too, because we also have a sneaky little belief in there that for some reason, if you're in the unseen world, you have a hierarchy, right? The hierarchy, you have more access to something. And I think kind of the church, the religious kind of infiltration on that one kind of gave us that. But we're all equal. We have to start seeing ourselves as equal. And we were talking a little bit about the word holarchy, based on the word holism. So there is an order, but it's not arranged by better to worse or richer to poorer, which is also a better to worse kind of scale. We have these odd like scales that determine whether you have any value. We value money so much that we put attribute dollar signs to each other, and what we do and how we produce and where we live and the car you drive and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really sad because we're missing the person. We're missing that human to human connection and the amazingness of the person that's before you, because you have all of those other things in the way that determine whether I can even talk to you or not, because you don't drive the right car, you're dirty, and you're
the status that you have, the status.
Yeah, the status. Yeah.
Very much so. And the things that we value, right? Like that celebrity status, that the money status, like fame, money, what car you drive, what house you live in, the clothes you wear.
It's no wonder why we have this like underlying I'm not good enough shit running under the radar, because it's around us all the time. It's reinforced all the time.
Yeah. Well, very much in the culture we live, and it's built up over the years, right? That whole energy of the hierarchy. And if we could just get past it. And I mean, there's a lot of people who are, working on a totally different level, but the surface level that we see on a day-to-day basis, that's very much, where we're at. And it influences how so many people move through the world.
Yeah. And it's one of our biggest blocks, I think, too. And I think we kind of tricked ourselves into when we talk about, I procrastinate, blah, 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 and I beat myself up because of it. It's like, I'm enslaving myself on that one. Right. I'm enslaving myself. And so like they've gotten us to do a really good job in enslaving ourselves. But I think the good news is when we are waking up. So I want to say start to wake up when we realize now that we're awake and we realize we have the autonomy to create, that we get to ascribe the value to the energetic work we do, the frequency, like all the work that I know a lot of you people, that are out here listening and watching this right now, do a lot of inner work, right? A lot of time, a lot of money spent on classes, all that kind of stuff. And your vibration is shifting. You're holding a higher frequency, and you're probably able to just come into a room and help shift energy around, right? But because we don't have a value system around that, we think it's worthless. And then we go into the self beat up of like, I can't produce and do things, when really we have to look at and value what it is a vibration is. And I think that's when people were talking a few years ago about the new money system coming. I think that's the new frequency of money. That's kind of what they're talking about, but I don't know that that's even fully formed. But I think that's kind of going to be up to us. Why do we need to have the paper exchange that we have, with the ascribed value to it? And then now I'm going to ascribe a value to what you do. And so like, I was thinking about this the other day, like, a ditch digger works really hard. So we have a belief that work is hard, right? But it doesn't necessarily get you more money, because the person that seems to be doing the less amount of work makes the most amount of money, because it depends like who's underneath them. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm talking in circles or spirals or
all yes, and it's absolutely resonate. I don't want to say something is true or not, because truth is our perception of things, and it's very much my reality as well. What you're talking about, and just looking at how we're moving through the world. And interesting thing, I was having a conversation, must have been on the weekend, with somebody, don't ask me who, but it was about
anyway. I'm sure
could have been live, could have been dead, who knows at this point.
Yeah, we did grandmother's pie, and we had a great conversation.
The energy shifts, and they were complaining about the world and everything that's going on, and I said, well, one of the things, and we've talked about this before, is the US election made me realize that we're in this shift. Like I knew it, but now you can see evidence of it, right? You're seeing these rallies, you're seeing people stand up, people who would have never done anything before. And as humans, we're very complacent. And so we need to be more uncomfortable than we're comfortable with to be able to make change often.
Right.
And so now we have a large group of people who are very uncomfortable that are stepping up to make change. And so we're really seeing how it's playing out. Now, if we hadn't had the Pumpkin King, in that role, we wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't have had that at this time. So it was necessary, as horrible as it was necessary to make the changes that we are experiencing.
Absolutely. So that's how we say that we created it, right? Because we're a collective mind. We have collective beliefs, and sometimes you need to have created someone that's going to be the representative or the holder of like, this is, I'm going to do everything wrong. I'm going to show you everything in the shadow. I'm going to show you like all the stuff you hate, and it's going to get you to look inward even more. So when you look at things like from an energetic, like soul perspective kind of thing, you kind of go, it's hard to say this, by the way. You kind of have to look at that like, wow, what is that person's soul lesson that they said, I'm going to take this on in this lifetime. It's like he either has like really bad karma to work out, or he's really taken on a lot to learn a lot in a big and fast way, But it's fascinating to look at it from that perspective versus just this like little me world, right? And it is hard because, yeah, there's stuff I've read about Donald Trump and, different,
It's like Voldemort. Don't say his name.
okay, whatever. I don't want to call him the King because I don't want to feed that, but
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Anyway, there's people in different spiritual communities that talk about him and his game plan and all that kind of stuff. Did I share that email with you that someone had sent me? And it was like this long list of things that, it's the playbook that he follows about.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I had a hard time reading that because the person who I respected, the person that was writing about it, and I just kept thinking like, oh, he's on the other side. He's da 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 da. And I was like, man, I'm
still struggling with that one.
I have to get myself out of that because that's me going like choosing sides. And yes, I'm aligned to a certain way of being in the world that I want to see, but I don't need to make the other side. I'm still saying it's in my language. It's like I said, the language reveals that they're wrong, right? It's just a different viewpoint, and it's not the right one, but it's the but it's serving where we're
serving its purpose in what we
going. Yeah, because some people talk about like the new earth and the shifts happening, and that it's almost like it's so hard to talk about it because we don't have language for it, and we don't have like even the visuals for it. So I've heard it talked about like it's an overlay, but if you think about yourself as many layers of body, right? So you have your astral body, your causal body, all that kind of stuff, and you have a whole field, and so we tend to think linearly, but now picture that all just different frequencies of vibrations coming in till like, oh, now I'm dense and this is me, Deb, right? And I have a personality that's more wired for me being in this plane, but I also have access to the part of me that's wired to be in all of it, right? So, and now as the frequency shifts are happening, we're getting more and more access to that bigger part of us. And so now the game becomes, how do I get this part of me that is playing this game, that's really invested in it, that's really attached to the personality and who I am and my identity and all these things that I do, and start to give that up and go, oh no, there's this other part of me that sees more, knows more, is more loving, gets the bigger picture, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And then it's the shift. That's the shift. I think the world is doing the same sort of shift, right? And so some of us will vibrate on the level of what we want to call the new earth, or what we've been calling the new earth, will be in that frequency because we're doing this type of work. And others that are more connected to that will be working out some other stuff over there. And it's not right or wrong. It's a yes and, right? It has to happen that way. It's like it's expanding. It's how the universe expands.
Yeah. And as much as, the very much me in this place right here, right now wants to say that they're all wrong, I also can recognize the necessity of it. Do I wish it was so painful? No, but it's needed. It's kind of like my past, would I wish to do it again? Absolutely not. But would I be the person I am today if I hadn't done that? If I hadn't lived through those traumas, if I hadn't done all of those things. And so, we have to look at it, or attempt to look at it from different angles, right?
Shamanically, this always used to blow my mind too. Like, so I know you have shamanic training too, where you can go back in time and shift something in the past. And so we're now going to start talking, and we're going to start talking about what we were talking about before.
Even though we said we weren't going to it yet.
Right. But the only thing, like, your past only exists in your mind. It's a concept in your mind, it's a construct in your mind, and also whatever's unresolved in your body's still carrying it out, because we do have that unconscious part of us, that there's part of us still going. For disassociative, most of us, when you have a trauma, you disassociate. So you disconnect from the physical, And then you get the soul piece, right? So that's, that's why we do soul retrieval, right? To bring that back into the body so it can reintegrate. And so that part of you isn't going like, oh my God, I'm dead. Oh my God, I'm dead. And so the part of your body is acting that out too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all energetic, right? Right now in this moment, the person I see survived all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean you have to keep carrying it around, but it is in our wiring, and that's why we do the work that we do, is to help
Mm-hmm.
you get through that, to acknowledge that I survived that, and then your brain can kind of rewire, your body can kind of rewire, and you can move on, like it didn't happen, but we still talk about it, right?
Yeah, I feel like for me, it's that reminder that I'm not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, things happen. Everybody has traumas. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one that hasn't had a trauma in their life.
Mm-hmm.
No one. And we all have different traumas. And unfortunately, we assign value to traumas. But
Mm-hmm.
trauma is trauma. Your body, like trauma is trauma. And so the things that we have, yes. What for me then, I feel that it doesn't matter what happened, right? It's I'm here. I'm doing great things. Do I still have some stuckness in me from things that may have happened? Do I need to pinpoint what those exact things are? Probably not. I just need to know that there's some stuckness that I need to move through.
Yeah,
And
in as much as it gets in your way, I think that's
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
when we become aware of it. You're trying to move this, move through this thing, and something keeps you feel that like I'm being pulled back, sort of feeling.
Yeah, when you have that Groundhog Day where you're just doing the same thing over and over again, wondering why you keep
Yeah.
doing this thing,
Mhm.
there's
Yeah, and
probably something to
the body gives messages like that too. The body's talking to us. Unfortunately, in our culture, it talks to us in pain. That's the language of the body. And we don't like to feel the pain, so we don't deserve to have pain. So we're going to go take the pain meds and shut it the hell up, instead of getting what your body's trying to tell you. Like, oh, do you remember that fall we had? Yeah, I'm still like hanging out there somewhere. You need to come back in here, you know and once that integration happens, and this is the magic, that there's a reason why I love doing the work that I do, is because it's like you could never ever ever figure out that event that happened back then had the effects of you and how you're acting, moving off of that, moving forward, without that
Mhm.
information, without that data. Think of it as missing data. Your hard disk, your hard drive needs to be defragged. Right. And so your body's moving off of an old record, and you're creating off of an old record, right? And so we want to upgrade the record by bringing that piece back in, and then you go, oh my God, like I wouldn't have made this choice, I wouldn't have made that choice. It's fascinating to me, because
Mhm.
you could never have put that together without having that energy come back to you.
Mhm.
To me, it's like a miracle.
And then also recognizing that sometimes that needs to happen so that you did have those experiences, so that you did end up where you were, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We assign the value to traumas and things that we consider bad as a negative, but often they're shifting us in the direction that we need to be going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like in Dolores Cannon's work, she always talks about, if you have an accident, it's because your soul's trying to redirect you. You're going in the wrong direction. And she's kind of come up with like kind of like a formula, if you will. I don't like to ascribe to those, because there's anomalies within that.
Mhm.
But usually it after an accident, there is a shift that happens. So whether that's the one you were supposed to take or not, I can't be the one that tells you that. But
Mhm.
yeah, and
Well,
it is part of us too, that like we make things wrong, and we make things bad, and
mhm.
things just are. And it's really hard it really is, see, this is a belief, hard to get past that, because it is ensconced in the culture. Like, oh, that, oh, gee, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, that's horrible. That's awful. That shouldn't, you don't deserve that. That never should have happened to you. And you could be going, well, no, it's not deserve or not. Like, no, it helped me get over here. Like, we don't say those kinds of things because we're like, yeah, you're right. That shouldn't have happened to me.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It is fascinating when you can look at these things from a different angle than what we've been taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because our what we've been indoctrinated with in our culture is, these horrible things happen, and and then it's about, working through them and trying to put them behind you, and all of those things. And really, they're just all a part of the journey. Everything is a part of the journey.
Yeah.
And you get to decide the story you assign to that. You get to decide, what value it has,
Mm-hmm.
if any. And
yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes I look at it too, like doing past life work has been interesting too, because I think about myself in this now, right now, and I know the things that have happened to me in my past. But a lot of times, and I know you've said you can relate to this, because it feels like I've lived a lot of lifetimes in this one life. And so if I kind of looked at it through that lens, why am I carrying forward the energy of that accident I had when I was 10?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe I need to be a little bit careful when, but like, do I need to have it alter me to the point where I'm, so sheltered that I'm not living what I'm supposed to be living, because it was part of the beat down process,
Mm-hmm.
That I could leave back there with that version of me that still exists in the Akashic field, right? In the Akashic record, that stuff still exists. I'm just more focused here and now, So it's just really like, how do I unhook myself? How do I unhook myself from those things that are pulling me into the past? How can I become more and more present? And to me, that's what healing really is.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's about becoming present.
Yes, it really is. Like, because what you're doing, if you're being pulled by your past, or you're creating everything based on past experiences, you're just recreating. You're not really creating anything. And so I think we're in this place right now, which is really interesting, where we have enough awareness of this, and so we're creating and we're recreating at the same time.
Yeah.
Which probably is part of the chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at what we said we were going to talk about, and like, we're right on track. So I'm like, even though that we wove in, today, and the conversation we have, absolutely on track. And I think because it's all has to do with flow. It all has to do with how we move through the world, and all of that. You were talking about pain, and one of the things I've been working with is leaning into pain, because as someone with chronic pain, and I know that dis-ease in the body is things that you haven't dealt with, and things that, and so what I had found, thanks to my embodiment coach, really, but what I had found was that I have been disassociating whenever the pain comes in, and it's a coping mechanism that I've used my whole life. Probably due to the traumas I had, blah, 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 all of that. So as I lean into the pain and listen to it, it's amazing how quickly it dissipates.
Yeah.
And it's like, normally I check out, but the pain is still there. It's still, encumbering how I move. It's still, taking the pain pill, blah, blah, all that stuff. But when I lean into it and listen to it, disappears, because it's being heard.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what it wants. But we've been so, ingrained with, taught to ignore our feelings, ignore the pain, any of those things, because, they're just getting in our way. But they're telling us something. Our emotions are telling us something. Our pain is telling us something. All of these things are telling us something, and we're not listening.
No.
And so the more we listen, the more it feels heard, then it can move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been amazing. And it's not that I didn't know these things, right? Like I know these things. It's when you actually start to embody the things that you know.
I mean, yes, absolutely. That's when it becomes embodied. You start living it.
Mm-hmm.
That's embodiment. It's living it. You don't even have to think about it. It's just you're creating your reality from your lived experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out of concept, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start, we have to get exposed to it. Feeling, we are feeling each other all the time. We're not as tuned in all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and we're tuned in more for protection. And the person who's been traumatized, and we all are empathetic, and I feel that we can all feel each other. I think some of us tune out of that because that's easier. I think some of us are hyper sensitive, hyper aware. I know that's one of my gifts, is my hypersensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
But no one shows you how to work with that when you're a little kid. You just
Mm-hmm.
get shut down right away, or overloaded right away. So that becomes part of our neural pathways and our wiring and stuff too, because there's no one there to help you with that. I've you know I've come to really love those parts of me, but it took a while to get there because I was so disassociated from my pain, my body. I was in lots of pain throughout my whole life, and I just thought it was normal. And I remember like talking to my husband one time, and I would, going to bed, I would go, okay, I would just go through my whole body, my checklist, so I could go to sleep and just quiet this, quiet this, quiet this, quiet this. And then I said to him one time, like, oh, like I think my feet were walking on the beach barefoot, and my feet were just really killing that night, and I couldn't get them to be quiet. And I mentioned something, and he said to me, like, no, I don't feel that. And then I kind of asked him a little bit deeper, like, you don't ever have this or that or whatever. And he's like, no, I don't have any of that. And I just kind of thought it was, everybody has this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I started crying because I'm like, this isn't normal. there is like, and so that was the impetus for me to go address it, because I was coping with all the time. I don't have, and maybe it was the way I was raised, rather, that we didn't go to the doctor when we had a pain.
Mm-hmm.
That where I definitely learned it was like, pain is a part of life, kid, deal with it, right?
Deal with it,
yeah. And we're not going to the hospital unless you have blood coming out of you. Yeah. So we handle everything
with it. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, but when I realized that I came out to Sedona for a 2-week intensive, and they do like all the movement tests and all that kind of stuff, and they get your pain levels and all that kind of stuff. And what was incongruent was the activities I was doing in my life was not jiving with my pain levels.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was saying, what hurt a lot, I was still doing it as if it didn't hurt. So it was like there was a dishonesty in there, but I didn't know I was being dishonest. I was just like, I can disassociate from that and still get the stuff done. So my whole life has changed because now I'm tuned into my pain, and it's not like I'm living in a ton of pain. It's like a normal amount, and it's like to say that, like, well, I'm going to go to this person and I'm going to become pain-free. That's just not going to happen. Life does have pain in it. Yeah. That things are painful.
And it's our message system. It's our warning system. There's a reason we have pain. Yeah. It's not to ignore it and push it down. It's to pay attention and do something. That's why we have pain, whatever kind of pain. Yeah. Emotional pain, physical pain, whatever kind of pain it is. We have that pain so that we pay attention, but we have been taught not to pay attention.
Yeah.
And so we don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're wired for love, right? But love is unsafe a lot of the time in the world that we live in, right?
In the world that we live in. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've learned to protect. And when you protect, when you're in that state of protection, you're in a state of disconnection. And so that creates even more pain, even more loneliness, because it's so hard to reach out when the ones you're trying to reach out to have historically been the ones that hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a conundrum, isn't it?
And again, we've never really been taught what love is, right? And so then we learn love based on our societal ideas of it. And so if you come from a family that's, well, got some things going on, you learn that that's love, and not necessarily the healthiest, but you carry that forward thinking that's love. And then it becomes this whole journey that you go on to explore, what is love, and or don't, depending on what your journey is. And so what our society says love is, right? If you look at media, and it's like, it's not even real. It's
It's fairy tale. It fades to black, and then what happens? Yeah. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they live happily ever after. We just
happily ever after, right?
Yeah.
Which is
that's where the work starts, kids.
Yes. Oh, I mean, I honestly think that's why we come together in relationships. It's not so that we can, boost each other up and do all of those things. That would be wonderful. It's so that we can learn from each other, so that we can do our work, because there's so much, in cohabitating with someone else, or being in even a friend relationship with someone else. There, whatever it is, there's so much we can learn about ourselves, if we allow it, from other people, that we cannot learn by ourselves. Sitting on a mountain all by yourself, you are not going to learn the same lessons as being a part of a community, being a part of in a relationship with one person or more, any of that. So that's why those people are in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, if you really love that person, right? It's not about like, I can get away with murder and, they're going to have to keep loving me. Right. It's that like, there's no one better that I'd rather, learn all these things than with you. Right. And that's love. I love you so much that I'm willing to like go there and do this uncomfortable work and learn not to be that I'm Miss Right all the time, and it's not about, it's like, it's not about right and wrong, it's about
learning those things about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Seeing yourself in the mirror. Yeah. Yeah.
If you choose to do that. If you don't choose to do that, then you're just going to keep reliving those things, because most likely you came here to do that work and you're not doing it.
Yeah.
So you're just going to keep reliving those things over and over again.
Yeah. And it's like, it's funny. I had a certain point in my life. It's like, oh, that's why we attract these certain kinds of people. I got to a certain point where I'm like, what is it with all these narcissists in my life? Right. I needed to ask that question, because I just kept pulling in people that were trying to show me, well, they didn't know they were trying to show me, but they were mirrors for me to see like where I am stepping out of my power all the time and handing it over. Right. So the beautiful narcissist, shows up, and, and then once I realized like, oh my God, it's like everywhere. I can't not see what I need to be looking at here, and then one of my friends says, oh, you need to read Codependent No More. And then I found the book, but the subtitle was something about controlling people. And I'm like, I'm not the one controlling anybody. Everybody's controlling me. But when I read the book, I was like, oh, I get it. But that was kind of like one of those catalyst sort of moments, right? It was like realizing like how many people in my life are going to keep showing me this.
Yes. Because the people are in your life as a mirror. Yeah. They're not in your life to make your life difficult.
Right.
They're in your life as a mirror of the things that you need to work through.
Yeah.
And knowing that doesn't always make it easier, but knowing that can help with, understanding that until you do something about this, until you look at this, until you decide how you want to move through this, it will just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, now I know to ask, like when a certain personality type shows up, and usually it's I'll ask it before it becomes too close to me. So like if I keep seeing the same person doing the same thing and I feel the same subtle annoyance inside of me, I ask myself, like, what's going on, Miss Ego? What's going on in there? I don't have to have, I mean, yeah, I don't have to have as hard lessons as I did earlier in my life because
yes.
I'm smartening up a little bit, but
I have less 2x4s to the head in the last few years than I ever did, because it was just like, oh my goodness, you don't learn. Okay, we're going to get your attention this time.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say something, but it went right out of my head. But that's what happens with 3 hours sleep, I guess.
Yeah.
It was not enough last night. Not enough. Oh, wow. Look at the time. We should start thinking about how what's going on in our world and what we want to share with people. And we've been on here for almost an hour.
I know, it was a very lively conversation. Yeah, one of the things I was going to mention earlier on, but we were talking about creative flow. And this is like, I'm developing something new on Substack that I'm kind of excited about. It is taking me a little bit of time because I'm figuring out how do I want to best deliver it in this platform that I really need to take the time to sit down and learn. Right. And so I did that this morning. I found out all kinds of stuff. I'm like, this is good. And I had set a deadline for myself for solstice. And I'm like, I'm not going to make that deadline, but I'm okay with that. So it's that I'm working with that part of me, because it's not that I'm procrastinating. I have a lot of the stuff pieces put together. It's like, I'm kind of in the, how do I want to deliver this? I need to find someone that has done this. I need to see a model of it. I need something. And I found that today. So the program's called the Dreaming Orchard, and I'm really building it. I'm building it more for me. You just froze a little bit. I'm building it more for me. And I'm coming from a place of like, well, it isn't just for me, it's for people. I'm holding an energetic field of working in creative flow. So the things I'll be addressing in that container is just what we're talking about today, about, shifting the beliefs when they come up, where you're getting stuck. It's going to be a little bit different than the work I was doing before, because I'm doing it more for me. It's a place that I'm going to be releasing a lot of the writing I'm doing, the channel messages from the guides. That's going to be a place where that stuff is going to live. The stories of them. So I already have a good portion of stories done. And for me, that's like, wow. So that's part of the creative field. Like, I could just go, okay, here it's free for people who want to read what I want to do. But this adds a layer of a paid subscription, adds a layer of not just accountability for the person that wants to join, but they get to play along too. So if you're working on a project that you're trying to get out there, but don't know how to get it out there, this is going to be the place to do that, because it's going to, and the reason why it's an orchard is because just as in a field of something growing, like trees that fruit, they're all at different stages, right? You have some fruits that are ripe, some trees ripen at different time, in different times and in different ways, and some are blooming and some are ripe for the picking, some are falling to the ground because that's where they need to go and reseed and compost. So it was like, I just started writing about this, really like this, how creativity is like that. Because I get a ton of creative ideas, and I always get questions from people too about like, oh man, this is like it's like a big problem that I'm so creative that I can't execute because I have too many ideas coming in. I'm like, I totally get that. But like, you start to learn more about yourself and more about your own creative process and give yourself the time and space to do that, you're going to know exactly what fruit's ripe for the picking and what wants to be let go, what needs to make more, needs more time to ripen, not from a place of being perfectionist, but from a place of like, it's truly just not ripe. And it's basically the journey I've been on in the last year and a half since I stepped away from my online practice, is really learning not just the rhythm of the earth and the rhythm of the moon, but I was working with the moon, learning this, but that's what taught me, like, I have my own inner rhythm, and it doesn't always match the world's. And that's where the chaos and incongruency comes in. So this dreaming orchard is going to include things that are going to help with that. But it's going to be self-led, and it's going to be more of a community kind of thing. And we'll have like monthly calls that we'll talk about stuff, and it'll all be held inside that little container.
I love it. I love it. So once you get all that hashed out, you can send the information and we can share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on in my world?
What's going on in your world?
I've been going down this AI rabbit hole, and how AI, and I love AI, right? Like I really love it.
I do too. I have to say.
I see a concern with it. People are losing more and more of their humanity because they're not using it as a tool to help them be more embodied. They're using it as a tool to check out of doing things, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been exploring that more. And so I've created this membership, AI Heart and Tech membership, to explore that more. And yes, we have prompts, and yes, we have, we're looking at all the AI because I love to play with it, but also what that means, right? More and more about what that means and how we can move through it differently, and things like that. So we'll be exploring a lot more of that. So I'm pretty excited about that. One of the things I've noticed in probably the last 6 to 8 months is that we're desperate for community, but we are not doing anything to move towards community. And so I'm really playing with what that looks like, and not just in person, because I've been really called over and over and over again to go back to in person. I don't want to go completely in person, but I do feel that I need to add some in-person work. However, online, I think we can have amazing community and connection, but it's like how to integrate that with people who are so disconnected, right? And they're just so busy, and they're so doing their own thing. When the pandemic was on, everybody came online and was doing that. And then, people have kind of gone back to in person, but not 100%. They're kind of both, but they're not really committed anywhere. This is what I found. They're not really committed anywhere. And so I'm working with the energy of how to bring people more together in that healing space, whether it's for your business, for your personal self, but what that looks like what that looks like to step out of your comfort zone now, because what is comfortable now, right? What is comfortable, and see how we can bring. I don't have a complete answer yet, but it's an energy that I'm working with right now.
Yeah, and it's good to weave it out there too. So saying,
if anybody has ideas, let me know.
Yeah, or you're putting it out into a broader field that more things will come back to you. Yeah, it is interesting because that was a lot of the reason too that I stepped away too, because I love being face-to-face connection with people. I love working like this. There really is no distance, and I learned a lot in being able to do energy work, and from this distance, and like the results like freaking blew me away, because like stuff but you haven't been able to put to the test yet. So that makes the in-person work even more amplified, because it's now you have this like lived experience of like, this stuff really works, There is no distance really, it's just what we have created in our mind. And I like doing the both, and I like having my people come here and we get to do stuff on the land, and I like the community that I'm building with like the monthly ceremonies that I do, monthly gatherings. I'm loving that, and I also love the connection to a bigger field, with people in it. And I think it might be like an individual thing right now, that you're just innovating for what feels right for you. And maybe that's what we all need to be doing, is what feels right for you, what makes you happy, what excites you, because I think that's where our creativity lives, is in that place of excitement.
Yes. And so yes, and which we talk, yes, and absolutely. I'm all about feeling into things and what feels right. However, we have been so numb for so long that are we really paying attention to what is going to feed us? What is, because it may be a little bit uncomfortable to move towards something that you're passionate about or that you really want, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. So then you're like, well, that's obviously not the thing. That isn't the direction because
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Yeah. And it's really, it's when I started doing this thing, right, I got really excited, and I hadn't felt excited about something in a really long time. Right. Not to say that I don't have moments where I go, what the fuck are you doing? Right. Why are we doing this? Right. And like, it's a challenge. We are going to have challenges in the things that we're innovating. And it's not going to feel comfortable all the time. Right. But that's where all the lessons are. And we know we're here to learn. So yeah.
Don't just move towards something that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Move towards what opens you up, expands you.
Yeah, it does have to be yes and, but I think initially, like, doing what excites you on the daily doesn't preclude you from having to do the shit work that you have to do to get the stuff out, because that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, if you're doing the thing that is exciting to you and there is a crappy part of it, find a way to make it exciting. Right.
Yeah.
Because why do you want to approach anything where you're not in a state, you're in control of the states of excitement or disempowerment or awful feelings? Not to say that they don't run through us. How long we stay in them is up to us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have a lot more power over that stuff than we think we do.
A lot more. Yes. All right. Any final thoughts before we go? Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
No, thank you for meeting me, and like this deep conversation was really, really awesome. And yeah, there's lots of cool stuff on the horizon. I think both of us, this isn't the only thing that we're doing, and
yeah. There's lots of things simmering right over here. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we will see you next month.
Bye.